Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au bringing you this week's edition of Hotspot of the Week, and this evening I'm going to focus on an area of Brisbane. Brisbane is our focus for a number of reasons, including the fact that very soon we're going to be conducting what we call our mobile masterclass, our property seminar with wheels, the bus tour of Brisbane, which takes place on Saturday the 13th of April. And if you're interested in investing in Brisbane, and the recent surveys show that most investors across Australia regard Brisbane as a prime target now that markets in Sydney and Melbourne are trending downwards. So if you're one of those interested in Brisbane as a place where you can buy affordably, get good rental yields and good prospects for price growth as the Brisbane economy and infrastructure spend improves, then please consider the bus tour, which will be conducted by me personally, a full day's exploration of all the key points of the greater Brisbane area in terms of the economy, infrastructure spending, real estate, investment prospects on Saturday the 13th of April. And in this broadcast, I'm going to focus on the Moreton Bay region, which is up in the northern precinct of the greater Brisbane area. Now, one of the banes of all property investors seeking good information about what's going on in real estate across Australia is firstly the negative media, which is telling us that markets are falling everywhere, which is simply not true. There's Australia abounds with growth markets right now, and the area I'm going to talk about tonight is one of them. Another one is one of the great problems is generalisation, where they tend to produce a single figure to describe an entire vast city, and if most of the figures from most of the research sources will tell us that Brisbane house prices, while not falling, aren't growing that much. Well, that may be true as the average across Brisbane, but there are, as there always the case, exceptions. And the Moreton Bay precinct, the Moreton Bay region local government area, the northern suburbs of the greater Brisbane area, is one of those exceptions. So I'll talk about that tonight in some detail now. I regard one of the power combination, I call it the power combination for looking for price growth. The three key factors to look for, and the power combination very often is affordability plus infrastructure plus jobs nodes. If you've got an area that's got those three factors in play, there's a pretty good chance that long term you only have pretty solid price growth. The area I'm talking about tonight, the Moreton Bay region local government area, the northern fringe of the Brisbane metropolitan area. Firstly, affordability. Most of the suburbs in this precinct have median prices in the 300,000s and 400,000s, and I'll give you more detail on that in a moment. Infrastructure, well, there's $1 billion in infrastructure spending happening right now, and there's more to come. It's certainly a big focus of infrastructure spending in terms of transport links and retail facilities, schools, all the things that communities need to function effectively. And jobs nodes, there are within the local government area of the Moreton Bay region lots of jobs nodes, but it's also very closely proximate to some of the biggest jobs nodes in Brisbane, keeping in mind that the CBD is not where most people work. It's one of the fallacies of real estate. A lot of people think it's true that most people work in the CBD, so you've got to be close to the CBD with real estate. Well, it just ain't so. And in Brisbane, the biggest single jobs node anywhere in the Brisbane metropolitan area is the other called the Australian Trade Coast. And that's the big commercial industrial area that surrounds the Brisbane airport and the Brisbane seaport, which are quite close together. And this is very close to the area we're talking about tonight. And the motorway that links the two places has just had $1 billion spent on it, recently completed, only just recently completed. So a lot in the favour of this precinct. It's got the jobs nodes within the area or close by. It's got great infrastructure and it's improving all the time. And it's got better affordability than most parts of the Brisbane metropolitan area. Okay, and put all that together, and it's not surprising to find that the Moreton Bay region is one of the highest growth local government areas in Australia in terms of population. And we'll talk about that as we go forward. Strategically located between central Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, the northern precinct of the Brisbane metropolitan area, as the name Moreton Bay suggests, close to the water. In some suburbs are waterfront, but extremely affordable. The Redcliffe Peninsula is part of the Moreton Bay Region local government area, and most of the suburbs on the peninsula, which means, by virtue of its name, you realise that it's almost surrounded by water, and most of those suburbs have median prices in the 400,000s. Lots of facilities. It's got lots of shopping. The big Morayfield Shopping Centre is one of the biggest. Westfield North Lakes is another big one. Lots of schools, more on the pipeline because it is a population growth area and government spending is high. Lots of sports facilities. The train line which links central Brisbane to the northern suburbs of Brisbane and then on beyond to the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, that runs through this area. So most of these suburbs have commuter train stations. And adding to that, we had a new branch line out to the Redcliffe Peninsula, the Moreton Bay Rail Link, which was completed about 2 years ago. The current population of this local government area, it's a big area. Current population is about 425,000, but it's projected that within about 20 years, it'll be 50% higher than it is now, over 650,000. So it's very much a growth area, one of the biggest growth areas anywhere in Australia. Now, in terms of the housing market, the first thing that stands out is the affordability. Many suburbs, median prices in the 300,000s. And if you're someone living in areas like Sydney and Melbourne, you can only wonder at that level of affordability. Suburbs like Ballara, Caboolture South, Deception Bay, Morayfield, and others, median prices in the 300,000s, and then slightly higher in the 400,000s. We've got suburbs like Beachmere, Burpengary, Clontarf, Griffin, Kalanga, Narangba, Sandstone Point, and Woody Point. The next thing that stands out is the high rental yields. Again, at levels that people in Sydney and Melbourne can only dream about. Many suburbs have median yields somewhere between 5% and 5.5%, and others are a little bit lower, somewhere between 4.5% and 5%, but well above average. And prices are growing there. That constant media negativity about prices falling everywhere with the generalised statements about Australian house prices being down, well, it just isn't true of all areas of Australia, including this particular area is one where, excuse me, just adjusting my seat because it's slipping. This northern precinct, it's the strongest market in Brisbane. It's the most active in terms of buyer demand, and affordability has got a lot to do with it. But also, we're seeing prices rising at quite steady levels. You wouldn't call it a price boom, certainly not yet, but there are several suburbs where median prices are up 5 to 6% in the last 12 months, and then there's some like Upper Caboolture is up 7%, and Beachmere is up 9%. So you've sort of got that moderate to strong price growth across many of the suburbs in this precinct, somewhere between 5% and 10%, but pretty much all the suburbs in this local government area have had median price growth in the last 12 months, some level, and most of them are sort of 5, 6, 7, 9%. So good price growth, good rental yields, and the other thing that stands out is low vacancy rates. It's a high growth area. There's land available for new development, and there are lots of major estates being developed and others in planning. But despite the high level of new development, vacancies remain low. All postcodes in the local government area of Moreton Bay Region have vacancy rates below 2.5%. The lowest is 1.3%, and the others all range somewhere in between, below 2%, some of them slightly above 2%, others, but all of them well below 3%, that sort of benchmark level that we like to see, which suggests that markets are not oversupplied. So good rental demand, good rental yields, affordable prices. It's a great package both for home buyers on a budget and investors looking for affordable buying prices and good rental yields in areas where there's strong demand and low vacancies. Now, the future is always the most important thing. What's coming up? Well, one of the things that's coming up for this area is a new university campus, and that's a great thing to be happening in a market that you're thinking of buying in, because the university campus is just an enormous generator of economic activity and jobs and demand for real estate. Lots of students looking for places nearby to rent property, which is something that's of interest to property investors. The campus is underway in terms of making it happen. It's not just an idea, it's happening. It's expected to open next year, and it will eventually cater for, within about 10 years, about 10,000 students, and ultimately double that number. It's expected eventually it will provide about 6,000 jobs. So it's going to be a huge jobs node, as well as a place of learning and a generator of demand for real estate. The federal government's provided $70 million in funding to get this underway, and state government is also contributing. The new Moreton Bay Rail link, which branches off from the main line heading north from Brisbane up towards the Sunshine Coast. There's a new line that opened a couple of years ago that branches off around about the area of the new university campus heading out to the Redcliffe Peninsula. So that's a big thing coming into this market. Another big thing is the Northeast Business Park, which ultimately is going to be a $2 billion development covering 770 hectares, business, mixed industry, as well as a major marina and marina village, and also 1,600 residential housing lots and lots of open space. So this is a big project that's happening in this precinct. There are many more. We've got, we have a location report on the Moreton Bay region. You can get it by going to the hotspotting.com.au website and clicking on locations and location reports, and you'll find our report for this area there. At the back of it, we list all the major projects that are currently happening or proposed. There's currently underway an upgrade to the Bruce Highway, which goes right up the centre of this local government area, heading from central Brisbane north towards the Sunshine Coast and beyond. $500 million being spent on that right now. Upgrades to train stations are happening. The Northeast Business Park I just mentioned. Tourism developments, lots of residential developments, and it all adds up to billions and billions of dollars of investment going into this area, which, as I said at the beginning, is one of Australia's #1 highest growth local government areas anywhere in Australia, buoyed by that level of infrastructure spending and housing affordability and proximity to major jobs nodes. So it really ticks a lot of boxes, and one that I would urge you to consider. If you're one of those investors sitting somewhere in Australia wondering where can we buy for growth that's affordable, good rental yields. Media keeps telling us there's no growth anywhere in Australia. Well, they're wrong. They're very wrong, and it's extremely poor form of them to keep telling people that, because there are many growth markets around Australia. This is one of them. I want to urge you to consider. And as I said earlier, it's going to be featured strongly on Saturday the 13th of April when we conduct our mobile masterclass. Starting in central Brisbane, we're going to be travelling north to look at these areas, and then later in the day we're going to look at other parts of the Brisbane metropolitan area, highlighting the key infrastructure that's happening, the markets that are providing affordability and high demand, and some other factors such as examples of small developments that investors might consider doing, splitter blocks, other types of development. We'll have other experts on boards as well as myself conducting a guided tour of the highlights of the Brisbane property market. So that's Saturday the 13th of April. Go to the hotspotting.com.au website if you want to find out more. And also, as I said earlier, if you're interested in finding out more about the Moreton Bay region as a growth market that's affordable, one you should be interested in, go to the hotspotting.com.au website, click on location reports, and you'll find it there listed amongst the areas that we've written reports on, because we recognise them as growth markets. Okay, that's it for now. Let's do it again same time next week. And don't forget also that tomorrow night at this time, starting at 6:30 in Queensland, 7:30 in the states that are enlightened enough to have daylight saving, will be the monthly live Q&A, your opportunity to throw your questions at me, and I'll be answering them live via this medium tomorrow evening around this time. So tune in if you've got a burning question about real estate issues or about locations that are of interest to you. Okay, so let's all get together tomorrow night and do that. In the meantime, I'll sign off and go and do something else. Nice talking to you. Bye.